Okay then, this is my third time trying to film this video. Welcome back guys to how to Airsoft Part 1. This is a series I wanted to do for a while, very simply. I wanted to do it when I've been in Airsoft for a year so I could help people get into the sport themselves by talking about my experience starting Airsoft, as well as how I think the ideal start to Airsoft works. So very simply, over today, just to give you some ideas of what we're going to be talking about so you don't waste your time watching the whole video looking for the bit that you want and it doesn't come up. We're going to be talking about looking for sites today and the different types of sites. That one's going to be a big topic because obviously the type of site you go to that starts your kind of Airsoft career, if you will have a big impact of what your enjoyability of the sport. What to bring with you. We're not talking about riffs today, we're not talking about any of that. However, we will be getting onto that in part 2 or part 3 where we talk about first guns, what to buy, stuff like that. What to bring is mainly going to be gear, equipment, clothing, stuff like that I'd recommend. UCARAs, we're going to talk about UCARAs and how that works, and whether I think I'll talk about how I feel about UCARAs because I feel like my opinion is going to differ to a lot of people's, and then what not to bring with you to your first Airsoft game. So first of all, your first Airsoft game, you need to pick what type of site you want to go to and then find a reputable site. So there are 4 types of sites. 2 of them I would recommend to first-time airsofters. 2 of them I wouldn't recommend until you'd found kind of your footing in the sport and you had a lot of experience. So 2 types of site I wouldn't recommend to get started would be speed soft arenas. They're fast-paced, they require expensive, good guns. Rentals will not cut it. You'll get outshot every single time. Okay, and as an environment, if you don't go in there with good gameplay and good skills, you're either going to run into one of 2 issues. You're going to get so frustrated you're going to try and cheat, and speed soft arenas are the worst place on planet Earth to cheat because everybody's going to watch you and they're going to tear you to bits, and that's obviously not a great experience. A lot of people, when they get frustrated with Airsoft, start cheating, and there's a lot of places that you can go and experience Airsoft and have those frustrating moments where instead of people punishing you for having that cheating moment. Not saying I've done it, but I've seen a lot of young people get very frustrated with Airsoft, so they've started ignoring hits, they've started not calling their hits just so they can actually get a kill, and that's the wrong environment to do it in, where you're just going to get torn to shreds and fall out with the sport straight away. So I would say speed soft arenas I'd avoid for your first game. However, if that's the thing that you want to end up doing, then obviously once you've played your minimum amount of games and you've gotten your permission to buy your own riff and you've invested some money and time in the sport and you've built some skills, that's a good place to go afterwards. Second type of site I wouldn't recommend are ginormous sites with massive great big costing. They're like milsim kind of ginormous kind of sites where they're charging you a fortune. They look like they'd be a great day out, but the issue is that most airsofters with experience, they're going to these sites, and for them the only challenge of the day is figuring out the layout, whereas for you, you're figuring out the layout, you're figuring out your rental weapon, you're figuring out how the sport works. It's a lot to take in one go, and often means you're going to be wandering around. For example, you've got Gal Games. I don't even know if they do rentals at the moment actually, but you've got Gal Games, ginormous great big prison turned into an airsoft kind of field. You've got multiple buildings over a massive piece of land. It takes you a good 10-15 minutes to go from one side of the field to the other. It's ginormous great big space. It is not a pleasant experience for somebody who's not already around the sport. So I would avoid ginormous great big places too. Which means you're left with 2 options: woodland sites and indoor and outdoor CQB. Now, those 2 sites, what I recommend to you, but based off of your preference, your playstyle. Do you feel like you're going to be somebody who enjoys the slow-paced, low kill count woodland sites where everything moves a lot slower, it's a lot easier to take everything in, but at the same time you might come away with no kills, you might come away with only a couple in a day. It can be a little bit unfulfilling sometimes, but you learn a lot with those woodland sites. Or do you want something where you can go in the deep end, indoor outdoor CQB, you've got a rental package and you're just running around, you're guaranteed to get kills across the day as long as you're participating, because you're just going to bump into people and shoot them. A lot more fast paced, a lot more high energy too. you need to ask yourself which of the two you want. I started with Woodland, and would I start Woodland again? I probably would, actually. The reason why I started Woodland and why I probably start Woodland again is again, it's slower paced, it's a lot less condensed. You've got more players that are going to be more laid back rather than high paced, high speed players that are going to, in the nicest way, in some of Airsoft, you will get people that see you as an obstacle, so you're going to get in the way of them if you're going in the same places at the same time because they want to get through, they want to work fast, they want to do their own thing, and if you're a rental and you're getting in the way, that can cause friction. I've seen it lots of gameplay, during lots of gameplay and in lots of fields. But this is when you have to ask yourself, do you feel like you could keep up and you can move around a lot quicker on CQB field, or do you feel like slower, laid-back Woodland where you can talk to people, make friends, and have more of an enjoyable experience to start with? I would tend to always recommend Woodland. However, if you do want the fast-paced environment, CQB is a great place to start also. So that's where I kind of leave that topic of types of sites. Looking for a site, always make sure it's reputable. Most places will advertise they also do UCARAs as well, and we'll get onto that in a minute and what that means. But most sites you want to go to, if it's CQB, couple of notes, if you look at the rules, most CQB places will have limits on the weight of BB and they'll have no minimum engagement distance. If those two rules are in place, I'd say that most sites that run those rules are pretty great. If there's no minimum engagement distance but there's no limit on BBs, I wouldn't go because it's going to be a pain fest. You're just going to get shot by high weight BBs at close range. And if there's a minimum engagement distance in a CQB, I always tend to stay away from those just because you will just spend your day going around corner and yelling bang at people and not actually shooting anyone. So there's also that to take into account. Woodland sites, the things that I watch out for Woodland sites is again, have a look at the rules, make sure that you are comfortable with them, because some of them will be like, not just rules but gameplay. Some of them will be like, well, we're going to be out for half the morning, so we're going to start at 8 o'clock and we're going to end our first game at 12. So you're out there for a long time, and as a new person to sport, I would never recommend long gameplay sessions where you're playing for like half the day without a break, because you're going to get tired, you're going to feel the fatigue. Obviously, running rental equipment, which means it's not going to be for you. It's going to be heavy or bulky or not fit properly. All of those things to take into account. So look for that for Woodland sites too. Other than that, looking for sites as well, make sure when you're looking for sites, read the reviews online. I've actually avoided 2 sites now because I looked at online reviews and then spoke to friends, and they all said the same thing, that either the site was heavily toxic or the site had no good marshals, which meant that cheating was rampant. So do have a look at reviews for sites. They tend to be a reflection of the truth if they're in bulk. Obviously, if you go onto a site and it's got 5 stars but one person said somebody was cheating, don't take that to heart. That happens with every site. But do have a look and see, if it has lots of bad reviews or lots of things. People in the Airsoft community do tend to let their voices be heard if there's a big major issue. Again, to give you an idea of how bad it gets with sites in the UK, there's a site that's now banned filming because the site was called out for such bad organisation and marshalling that it was dangerous for players, and now they've banned filming on it so nobody can get proof. So just look into those things, because you do have to be careful that you're not giving your money to a site that maybe isn't run the best. Awesome. That's it for sites. We're booked in. We have our first game on the way. Once we're booked in, we have the first game on the way. What should you get ready to bring with you for your first game of Airsoft? Very simply, I would say comfortable clothing is a main one. During the winter, padded clothing is going to help out. It's going to make everything less painful. Some sites will provide rental armour, so you can wear something that covers your chest section and potentially even your arms. I would recommend that you always wear something that has sleeves for your first game, just to take the sting out of it. Some sites will lend you gloves, but if they do not lend you gloves, bring your own gloves and make sure they are thick padded gloves, or if you have any kind of working gloves, things like that, they will protect your fingers. Other things to bring with you is good footwear, because most sites the flooring is always bad, and you have to remember on sites that have got hard flooring as well, BBs are going to be everywhere, so you want something with a decent sole where you're not going to be slipping on BBs, but you're also not going to be feeling them every time you step on one. Other things to bring with you, plenty of water, plenty of snacks. Lots of sites are very expensive now for food and drink, so bring your own with you. And then last thing I would say to bring with you is go into this environment willing to talk to people and make friends. One thing I always like to say to people is bring a positive attitude, because you will tend to find that you are a glance, a look, or a word away from talking to somebody and having a meaningful conversation and getting welcomed into the sport. You're that close. A lot of people go into it, they close themselves off, they stand by their cars. Sometimes they stand in the safe zone, they don't talk to anybody, they don't do anything, and then they have a bad day because they're like, well, I wanted to do it because I wanted to be social, and then they didn't have that social part of their day because they didn't engage with people. Having said that, a lot of sites I go to, people will go out their way to make new people or rentals feel welcome. So again, if you end up going to battle stations is great for rentals. You'll have a lot of seasoned players speak to you and make you feel welcome. And as far as I'm aware, I've been to Blackstone a few times now, and Blackstone also is the same. What not to bring with you we'll do quickly as well. Don't bring with you drugs or alcohol, because it's the quickest way to get kicked out of a site. A lot of people, I've seen one person get kicked out right at the very end of the day because they thought it'd be a great idea to sit on the boot of their car after the last match and crack open a beer, and the site owner was like, just leave, we don't want you here. A lot of places, the reason why they don't allow alcohol, especially, even though obviously you could be over the age of 18, you could be finished for the day, is because alcohol will often invalidate site insurance. So effectively, the site's ability to cover people to prevent accidents and provide financial support to somebody who has an accident goes away if people start consuming alcohol. Sorry about the cut there. We allowed people talking outside and the windows open. You don't want to have to listen to that. So other things not to bring with you. Don't bring with you things that you can't guarantee are safe. So don't bring knives with you. That's always a bad idea. A lot of people are like, oh, I've got a melee knife, things like that. I've seen 2 people now bring real steel, sharp bladed knives to Airsoft, thinking that they could use them as melee weapons. And I'm just stood there like, what on earth are you doing? Well, I'm not going to stab anybody. I'm just going to tap them on the shoulder like the rules. And I'm like, if you're still running around with a knife, you fall on it. Again, there's not going to be any coverage there at that site if you fall on your own knife and hurt yourself. And again, it's all insurance for a lot of these companies. So don't bring real steel knives with you. Don't bring airsoft guns with you bought when you were younger, or airsoft guns that you've bought off of dodgy websites. There's a good chance you can't use them. The reason being is you're either firing cheap ammunition, which they won't allow you to use. So BBs that aren't white in colour are a great example of that, because they shatter when they hit masks. And if somebody's wearing a mesh mask, something I don't personally recommend, but if somebody's wearing a mesh mask, you end up firing fragments of BBs into people's eyes. The other reason why bringing cheap or kind of old or nasty airsoft guns that you just bought when you were a kid or you got given to you, and ones that aren't really used for airsoft, is that you might find that they fire way over the limits, way under the limits, or have a large variation. So a lot of sites won't let you use them. I've seen a lot of very plasticky Temu BB guns turn up, and they are BB guns, they're not airsoft guns, and they've been firing way over the limit because they're using super high powered springs, and they're sniper rifles that take somebody both their hands and putting the gun on the floor to be able to cock the bolt back. So not recommended whatsoever. Don't bring anything with you that you're not renting. So, if you're renting an airsoft rift, don't bring one with you if you don't think it's safe to use. If you are told not to bring something on a website, most websites will have rules. Don't bring that thing with you. Also be careful with pyrotechnics. I've seen people bring flares with them, things like that. A lot of sites will only let you use what they sell on site, or things that are specifically airsoft branded. So if you've bought dodgy smoke grenades off the internet, which aren't actually smoke grenades for airsoft, they're things for other industries that can be toxic or dangerous or catch fire or be very hot, don't do it. If you buy kind of firecrackers or impromptu grenades off the internet, don't bring them either. Only bring stuff that's recommended for airsoft use. Don't bring stuff that you've just bought off the internet that explodes because you think it's a good idea. Really dangerous. Other than that, then, that brings you to other things you should bring with you. The UCARA point now. The UCARA, or the UK ARA, is a scheme in the UK set up by airsoft sites and airsoft sellers, so retailers, to guarantee that somebody buying replica equipment off of them is safe to do so and is using it for the right purposes. In the UK, this means if you go to a registered UCARA game site, you have to give them all of your personal details, your address, postcode, stuff like that. And once you've done all of that hard work, you then have to play 3 games, and I think it's over the course of a minimum of 2 months or 64 or 5 days. And you have to play 3 whole games. Once you've played the 3 games and you're all set up and qualified, they will send you a code, which is on the UCARA database. You give that code to a retailer. That retailer can put that code in and match your personal information with your information you've given them for your order, and you can buy whatever you want. I don't recommend people do this on their first day. You can, and you're more than welcome to if you very much think you're going to get into the sport, but I don't personally recommend it. And the reason being is you're handing in paperwork, you're getting that site to do all of that hard work for putting in your data and putting it all online, ready to go for your other 2 games. And then you don't turn up ever again. You've caused somebody in their business to have to do extra work, even though you never come back. I recommend it on your second day. And the reason why I recommend it on your second day is if you go in on your first day and you go, hi, I want to do my UCARA. Can I do a UCARA and hand in the paperwork on my next visit? Ergo, they can give you the form to take home with you that day. You take it home and fill it out, and you give it back to them on your second visit. What this encourages is, number one, you don't waste their time, but number 2, it makes you actually think about the process and go, actually, do I want to play Airsoft? Was this just a fun one-off, or am I seriously thinking about getting into this? So you're not wasting anybody's time, but also you're not either pressuring yourself to get into a sport that maybe you don't like after the first occasion, or you're not wasting your own time filling out all the forms and the information there as well. So when you go back on the second visit, 99.9% of places will go, yeah, that's fine. We will write down the game you played last time, the game you're playing today, and then the game you're playing next time, and we're all good to go. What I would just say is when you fill it out and it asks you to put the date on it, put the date of your first game, because I have seen somebody have an issue where the field was like, well, you put today's date in, but it has to be X amount of days between the 3 games, and we can't backtrack it. So that's why I say 99% of sites are fine. Just look what they want you to write down before you fill it out, if that's the case. And always ask if you're unsure. Again, most sites will just say, speak to us, we're happy to talk to you about it. And that's what I would recommend with UCARA, just because you don't want to waste your site or the site's time if you're not going to get into the sport. Awesome. Other than that, that makes you ready for your first day. You know what to bring with you, so good clothes and a good motivation. You know what not to bring with you, so drugs, alcohol, realistic kind of weapons or actual weapons, things like that aren't airsoft weapons. Okay, you know what type of sites to look for, so if you're interested in fast-paced combat and you're not afraid of getting shot up close, CQB. If you want slow-paced combat, an easier learning environment, woodland sites, okay, you're all ready to go. So what does your first day look like? Well, I will talk you through my first day, just to finish off this video here to give you guys an idea of where you're going to get yourselves kind of on your first day. So my first day was really simple. I turned up about 8 o'clock in the morning. This site does its briefing at 9, and I think you start your gameplay at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Pretty cool. Turn up at this site. I park my car. I leave my car in the bay. Now, this site I started off at is a place called Mad Dog. It is a woodland site, and you use your car as your safe zone. So effectively the whole car park is the safe zone where you have all your equipment in the back of your car. So I go into their office and I go and sign in. So when I sign in, they take my name, they take the waiver I filled out online, all of that good stuff there, so that I'm all signed in for the day with them, and they have all the paperwork they need for me to participate in their games safely. They then say, go wait by your car for 10 minutes. We'll call all of the rentals in once they've arrived. And once that happens, they call us all in. Now, if you're a rental at this site that I started at, they give you 2 briefings. They give you the rental briefing and they give you the main briefing. And I'll get into that in a second. So you head inside, and out on the table are all of the replicas that we're being lent for the day, the ammunition and all the safety equipment. Now, this is where my first day may vary from yours, because I came slightly prepared. I bought myself iPro and Face Pro beforehand from a reputable airsoft dealer, because I was worried when I went to somewhere I didn't want to have a full face mask with a foam seal, because I've got sensitive skin. So if you're wearing it all day, you're sweating and it has somebody else's sweat on there and they're never quite clean. I didn't want to wear one of those. And I was also nervous about it being a mesh mask. Mesh masks use mesh rather than a clear visor, and they can often be a bit dangerous because if BBs break or fragment while hitting mesh masks, you can get injured. So I brought my own. But with this site, they rented you a mesh mask, they rented you a gun, 2 high cap magazines, and I'll get into what those are in a second, and the riff itself. They showed us how to use the riff. They showed us the common mistakes everybody makes. So first of all, the charging handles do not work. So you can rack back the charging handle all day long and it does absolutely nothing. And they explained all of that. They told us what to mess with and not to mess with. Now this site was good because they showed people how to adjust their hop units. To give you an idea, I can actually show you that right now on one of mine. So this is the type of replica you're going to get given, although this has got some mods on it. So this is just a Spectre Arms AEG. So they told us don't use the charging handle. It doesn't do anything. You're not going to make your gun ready to go by doing that. However, what they did show us was if you pull back on the charging handle on these and you messed with this wheel here, that adjusts your hop unit up and down. By adjusting your hop unit, you're able to either get your BBs to go upwards, fly straight, or fly downwards. You want it flying straight. So you can adjust your hop unit doing that way. And again, most sites will explain this. So they explained how to use the hop unit. They explained that the charging handle doesn't work. They explained how to put the gun in safe and the different firing modes, as well as the firing modes we were allowed to use. This site that I went to, first of all, was quite cool because they allow full auto. So they would show you, this thing makes the gun go boom. This bit here puts it in safe, semi and auto. Okay, or not fun, fun, very fun, as the lady was saying to us. Okay. Once they showed us that, they then told us how the games would run, what we can expect from each of the games, and gave us some tips on how we can look after ourselves. So don't go shooting blindly into tree lines. Don't go shooting people that you can't confirm are the enemy and not your team. Don't go shooting members of your team. All of this stuff. They go through all of the kind of like your first day kind of rules. I do apologise about my parrot who's getting very excited because he knows I'm nearly done and he wants a treat. Isn't that right, mister? Yes. So once you've done all of that, they then sent us back out to our cars to do the main brief. The main brief was about 20 minutes long. I'm not going to get into what main briefs are like at airsoft sites, but it's just the rules of the site, the gameplay for the day, and like your emergency kind of stuff. Simple as that. All right. Once they did that, they then took us out onto the game field. We hit a certain point where there's a big sign that says put on your face protection, so you put your face protection on. Once you go past that sign, then you could also insert your magazines into your gun. Now, what we were also told is to wait to be told to insert our magazines because we were new going through that safe zone area into the live area. They were like, don't put your mags in just yet, wait a little bit before you go on because a lot of the main people will know not to shoot their guns as they go into that area, but a lot of people might stick the magazine in and just start spraying while we're on our way to the game field. So like, wait until we get to the game field. Once we got to the game field, we played 3 games. Two games. 2 games? 2 games. So we played Domination first, which was a game either side, then swap. So kind of a game, then swap sides, so you had equal chance. Then we went to a roving safe zone, so you have to keep your face mask on, but you could eat, drink underneath your mask and reload your weaponry. And then we played a second game, which took us up to lunchtime, which was again 2 games swapping sides, and that one was one where we had to push, and you had a limited amount of lives after a certain amount of time, and you had to get into the enemy spawn and kill them all. And then the last kind of thing we did was then go for lunch, and then we did the same again after lunch, but with different game modes on different games, on different gameplay fields. And that's kind of what your first day will look like. You'll go home tired. I would recommend stretching if you don't do a lot of exercise. I know I did after my first day. My second day I stretched like hell so I didn't get cramp again. But that's how it looks. It is a great sport to get into. You're looking at between £30 and £50 for a rental package for a full day. You only have to do that 3 times, and if you really want to invest into sport and get your own equipment, you're more than welcome to. And that's where part 2 is going to come in. So after this video, I'm going to film a part 2. Part 2 is going to be where we talk about where you go after your first game day, and we take how you felt on your first game day, and we kind of figure out where you're going to go from there on in. What's the great first things to buy, where your investments should be, and then we're going to go through and do different parts as we get along, talking about kind of that progression within Airsoft. And we're actually then going to talk about where I'm at in Airsoft currently, where I've just been invited to a sponsored team, which is quite fun. So I've been doing Airsoft now over a year and a bit, and I've just been invited to a professional Airsoft team with sponsorships from brands. And I'm going to talk about how I went from what I've just explained to you, my first ever day, to this point in the hobby, giving you an idea of how the hobby can progress if you progress with it. Otherwise, if you've got any questions, so you're nervous about something on your first game day, you're not sure what to do, you don't know what to do with yourself on the first game day, I can give you some helps and tips in the comments, as always. If you want to keep an eye on this series and see where it goes, please feel free to subscribe, and then hopefully moving forwards we can get you guys all out there having a fantastic time with Airsoft. Otherwise, hopefully that's been useful and not a load of gibbering, because this is the first time I've done one where it's me just looking at a camera talking, and hopefully I may have put some pictures up along the way, all that good stuff. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one.